Now, when you look at Nigeria, some things look quite convoluted, and there's a lot to talk about depending on what you're interested in. On Friday, the Group CEO of the NNPCL, that's the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mr. Adeleke, did appear before the Joint Committee of the Senate on Appropriation, and he said a lot of things. But one of the big revelations was the illegality that is going on in the Niger Delta, especially that has to do with vandalism and insertions on our pipelines. So that's going to be the core conversation we'll be having today on the show. And I'm being joined on the show by two very experts in their own right to talk about this. All the way from the United States, virtually, I'm being joined by Professor Wumi Iledare. He's an energy expert. Professor, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for inviting me. Good evening and good afternoon from here.
All right, here in Nigeria, I have with us virtually as well, Mr. Kabiru Adamu is a security expert and also the CEO of Beacon Consulting Limited. Mr. Adamu, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
My pleasure. Good evening, and hope your day is going well.
Yes, my day is going pretty well, and I hope yours is going well as well.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
All right, sure. Perhaps a good place to start, Prof. Let me start with you. Will be the appearance of the NNPCL Group CEO when he was defending part of what he was asked concerning the 2024 appropriation bill. There are basic assumptions in that bill, one of which is that the government in 2024 expects to produce 1.78 million barrels of oil per day. And that assumption is based on selling that for $77 per barrel at the end of this. Now, his basis for that price, because they asked him, I said, is this achievable or is just too ambitious for the government? And he said two basic things. He said, looking at OPEC supply cuts, it will drive demand, and geopolitics convoluted by conflicts in places like Israel and Ukraine, for him, will keep crude price nothing below $70 per barrel. As we speak today, as at Friday, the price of crude oil is about $75 per barrel. So I want to ask you, Prof, do you share in his view that things are going to stay the way they are? Because he said things are going to stay the way they are for at least 2 years in terms of the pricing.
Well, again, thank you for inviting me. Let me say the price of oil is stochastic. And nobody has been able to predict the price of oil over the years. However, I think the $77 is not necessarily overtly ambitious. I think it's very conservative. However, whether the price could be sustained for 24 months is very conjectural. And I will suggest that we begin to have a budget that has what we call likelihood of occurrence, which is tolerance. So in that case, you should not just fix a price. You should have a band, and then you can have your budget over that. And I've said it over the year. The price of crude oil is not deterministic. It is highly stochastic. I'm picking a number without letting the Congress know the likelihood that that number will occur. We make the deficit as you have it today to be extremely high. But I think looking at the way things are today, I think $75 is highly conservative, but it has a band. It could be a range of almost $50 to about $95 between now and 24 months from now. I don't like picking a price when it comes to talking about the price of oil. All you need to do is to look at the number. And this is why you need competent people to look at the number that you have and then compare it with the forecast beyond your own forecast, and then estimate the error component and figure it into what you are using the price to forecast, because that will help you to be able to manage uncertainty and mitigate the end result. Because again, I've written quite a lot and I've spoken after. I think most of the assumption in the 2024 budget is too much of daydreaming. I don't expect you to be able to increase your production to 1.78 million barrels per day in 5 months when you are barely making 1.25. And you can't even predict what OPEC will do. And you have an agreement with OPEC with respect to the production quota that you are supposed to abide with. I personally think 1.78 million barrels per day is too high. But it is a budget. It is a budget. We just need to be fiscally responsible to be able to know what to do if the budget is not going the way we should. And finally, 3.76% growth in GDP as part of your input for your budget, to me, is also highly stochastic. All you need to go and look is over the last 10 years, what is the GDP growth in Nigeria? I'm not opposed to 27.5 trillion budget, but I want us to be aware of the fact that there's going to be higher budget deficit in 2024 with the current assumption. I must be prepared to cut spending, or at least just know that there will be a deficit that's going to be more than 9 trillion. But I'm not opposed to 27.5 trillion because of the current circumstances in which we find ourselves. We must find a way to rekindle the economy, but we must be aware that the revenue may not come with the current price forecast as well as production forecast. And let me stop so that other people can have their own comments as well.
Yeah, I'm going to bring in Mr. Adamo pretty soon, but let me ask you this question before I bring in Mr. Adamo. And I know you mentioned that the production quota, according to you, is quite ambitious. OPEC has put it at 1.5 for us at the moment. And I listened to the NNPC GCEO, and he was mentioning the fact that when you combine crude oil and the condensate, we're able to meet some of these numbers he's talking about. So, for instance, now we're doing 1.25 to 1.3, and then if you do another 250 or so of the condensate, you look at that number, because for him, that is not calculated and all of this. So my natural question will be, first and foremost, can we meet the OPEC quota before we even start talking about advancing beyond that number?
I want you to emphasize the word can we. We can, but there are certain things we need to do to be able to meet that 1.5 million, including condensate. And one of the things we need to do is, one, implement the PIA the way it is supposed to be implemented, which in my opinion we're not doing now. Two, manage the security in Niger Delta. Three, declare as criminality those stealing oil. It is called in our professional circle illegal bunkering. And it's not something that is not in bad. Some people have just been jailed in North Dakota, here in the US, for oil theft. But how many people have been put in jail? You know, oil theft in Nigeria started in the 70s, in the military rule. And there's a Pipeline Vandalization Act. Have we implemented it? Again, all of these things are interrelated. How many people have been jailed for fiscal irresponsibility? But when you don't obey your law as a nation, then you are going to continue to have some of these injuries. So being able to meet the 1.5 million quota will depend on some of these three things. Prosecute those caught for stealing oil, and begin to promote security in the Niger Delta through public education, which of course we're going to have time to discuss. Because for every barrel of oil that is stolen, you are taking away royalty that belongs to the federal government. You are taking away profit, which again will affect the tax, either corporate income tax or Nigerian hydrocarbon tax that the government will have taken. You are also taking away a lot of levies that the federal government will have received to build the economy. So all of this action they have impact on the economy and the society as a whole. And this is where effective governance, efficient implementations of law, and ethical approach to doing business are critical if the GCEU is supposed to meet that target. Understand the condensate component.
All right, Prof, if I may button.
Most of the time, the condensate production. Right.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Prof, I'm happy you mentioned the issue of security. Mr. Adamo, let me come over to you because this is your area of expertise. I'm asking because the president is quite optimistic that things, I'm sure he's optimistic that things are going to get better next year. That's why he called it the budget of renewed hope. And I'm also asking because the Nigerian Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, NATI, had said that between 2017 to 2021, if they can just throw that slide up for me, there were about over 7,000 pipeline vandalism. And between 2009 to 2020, a total of 619 million barrels of crude oil was stolen, amounting, this is in dollar terms, $46.16 billion, which is right now higher than our forex reserve, or in Nigerian naira terms, 16.25 trillion naira. And I want you to take a listen, besides what you're seeing on the screen, which I'm kind of certain you would have been familiar with. Let's take a listen to what the group CEO of the NNPCL told the senators and the lawmakers about the gravity of theft as far as the oil industry is concerned. Let's take a listen to him.
You have over 4,800 illegal connections on our pipeline. That means in some lines, within 100 kilometers of pipeline, Mr. Chairman, you will have as much as 300 insertions. Therefore, even when you produce the oil, you cannot deliver them at the required pressure, and therefore the volume will also be lost. What is happening to the gold that everyone rushes, exactly this is what is happening in the Niger Delta. People are coming from all parts of the country to create their own bonfire. That's what he meant, the illegal refineries.
Mr. Adamo, I'm sure you heard what the CEO said. The natural question is, this scale of theft, is it possible not to have mischievous elements with, we will call on patriotic mischievous elements as state actors collaborating with other mischievous elements who are non-state actors to be able to execute this level of theft? How is Nigeria even surviving?
No, exactly. And the fact that the group managing director of the NNPCL made that statement in the chambers of the National Assembly that have responsibility for oversight functions of all ministries, departments, and agencies of government is actually what makes me even more worried. There is an element there of accountability, there's an element of responsibility, and then, of course, there is an element of national interest. At the center of the viability of our budget is oil. And I think Prof has spoken extensively. The narrative you gave, that summary of the report by NATI has pointed clearly the massive nature of the issue, how quote unquote lucrative it is, and then how unfortunately, and this is the 101 of any crime situation, once it's lucrative, once there is a market, then the likelihood of preventing or stopping it becomes extremely difficult. And in this instance, there is a market. The more that market continues to remain, the more, in the words of the group managing director of NNPCL, people would be rushing to the Niger Delta to continue with the oil theft. So given the fact that the National Assembly has this oversight function, and I've been in situations where several committees of the National Assembly have looked into that issue. In fact, if you start counting the multitude of reports that have been generated on oil theft in Nigeria, the simple conclusion would be it's an embarrassment. So just to summarize what I'm trying to say, we know what the challenge is. Anyone who is kidding from a regulatory point of view that he or she is not aware of what the challenge is not being truthful to himself. What is remaining, unfortunately, is accountability. Those that are meant to take action and stop this, unfortunately, are not doing it. And because they are being allowed, I don't want to kid myself and anyone. This is not going to stop.
So in your view, what do you think can be done to make everybody come to the table to ensure that, look, everyone who is involved in all of this must be held accountable, because there's too much people perhaps not being punished for bad behavior, and this has become a new normal. How do we reverse this attitude nationally where there's no consequence for bad behavior? Because we're talking about, if we have to go anywhere as a country and oil is our cash cow, then this has to be reversed for us to make that money we want to make.
I think reality is hitting us at the moment. The current circumstances of the Nigerian economy is a wake-up call for anyone. And the president, at least going by his spoken directives, appears to understand this. So he's issued certain directives that I would say are a wake-up call. And I'm also quite delighted that not too long ago, he signed a performance bond with all his ministers. I would have restricted it to the Minister of Petroleum, but then, there's an irony there. But then, of course, the Minister of Petroleum for State is there, and he was part of that sign of the performance bond. So the question is, who is going to measure the performance of Mr. President in this regard?
Adam, I would like you to respond. Sorry for cutting in, Mr. Adam. I would really like you to respond to that, because that's what the former CBN governor raised, that is not a fan of the president being the petroleum minister, because according to the PIA Act, Section 53 is what brought the NNPCL into existence, and it's clearly stated how things are going to come out or be executed within the NNPCL. Now that the president and former president Muhammadu Buhari also was Minister of Petroleum, how do we hold the president accountable? Is a direct question to you.
Well, the reality is we're going to hold him accountable in one way or the other. The bulk lies on his table. If this issue is addressed, oil theft is reduced, and it would have a direct impact on our economy in several ways. The budget deficit as an example, the viability of that budget. So directly, we would know if, for instance, there is an improvement in the current circumstances. And this means reduction, as an example, in oil theft. It also means improvement in the living conditions of the people of the Niger Delta. So we will hold him accountable. However, are we going to hold him accountable in the same manner, for instance, of the performance measurement mechanism that he has signed with the ministers? No, it would be in other forms. The role of the fourth estate of the realm, and I'm very delighted you are doing this, the role of civil society organizations, and then of course he's a special advisor on policy and coordination that has been saddled with the responsibility for measuring performance, would also have to, at a point, give accounts for the petroleum ministry. And since there are going to be key performance indicators that would show clearly whether there are improvement or not in the various areas of the performance of that ministry, then invariably his performance will also be measured. But I think it's absolutely important for us to buttress the fact that the buck lies on his table, whether as the minister or as the president, especially given the importance of the petroleum ministry. But I don't want to deviate from the fact that the focus of my contribution is security. The reason why I brought the performance measurement system into the conversation is that the security departments, the ministries, are contributory to this conversation. For instance, the role of the Nigerian Navy, the role of the civil defense that had responsibility for protection of critical infrastructure. And of course, if we agree that oil infrastructure is included in that, then in measuring the performances of these various components that I've mentioned, we'll be able to see whether they've performed very well in reducing the incidence of oil theft. But it's very glaring. It's a case of accountability. It's a case of being truthful. And in this regard, I can't talk enough around using metrics. We need to embrace numbers. We need to have the capacity and the capability of documenting this incidence of oil theft. I mean, one of the biggest questions at the moment is how much oil do we actually produce as a country? That question has not been answered. Second part of that question, how much oil do we consume as a country? Unfortunately, at least from the government side, I don't know about the private sector, that question too has not been answered. So I'm hoping that in terms with regards to the introduction of this performance measurement systems, all of these issues would be answered. And of course, once they are answered, it will be very easy to use security to determine whether there is an improvement in reducing oil theft.
Prof, let me come back to you, Prof. We're going to continue with this in this line of thought with security. But two questions in one, Prof. First is the question of whether you see, is there a big deal whether or not the president is the Minister of Petroleum? I would like your take on that. And also the group CEO mentioned the fact that engaging non-state actors and communities to protect national assets, in his word, is not normal. It's an anomaly and should never have existed in the first place. But it looks like for him, it's an option of last resort to keep these assets or this economy floating at the end of the day. So I also want your perspective on that as well. So two things. First, the president being the Minister of Petroleum. Second, do you share the view that engaging non-state actors to protect our asset is a no-no?
Well, thank you again. This is the beauty of being in academia. And I'll continue to ask the government to protect the academia because they are the only one that can say things. Look at me now, putting me in between the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the GCU of NNPC. Listen, let me make quick reference to the security, and I'll answer your question on the Minister of Petroleum. Illegal refinery, as long as you continue to tolerate them, for whatever sentiment that may be there, you are not going to be able to stop the oil theft. And as long as you continue to not make people accountable for the responsibility you give to them, like the Navy people, the security people, if they are not able, you see how much oil can you move by truck? Very limited. So if Nigeria is losing about 200,000 barrels per day through oil theft, then something is wrong with our security apparatus. And that's where we ask the president to call to action his security officers who are well rewarded and well paid. 200,000 barrels of oil per day at $50 per barrel takes a lot of revenue from the government if they are stolen. Now, with respect to the president being the minister, no, you can see me, or just go to the website and type Iledare's opinion about the president being the petroleum minister. I think what you have seen in Buhari and probably seen in President Tinubu is the fear of Diziani. The fear of somebody being the Minister of Petroleum and then going haywire. But that is immaterial. If you have a law that defines responsibility of a function, responsibility of an individual occupying a position, and that's what the PIA does. I sent a press release this morning. There's no way the president can undo the function, or rather the presidency can undo the function that are stipulated in the PIA 2021. He's going to have surrogates doing his job. And you have seen the effect over the last 8 years. Everything that defines the performance of the industry is going against the traffic. Intensity of drilling is low. Cost of finding and producing a barrel of oil is high. The reserves addition per effort is going down. These are policy issues that the presidency is not suitable to handle from the PIA 2021 point of view. The president is the chief executive officer of the nation, the executive president. What Yoruba people call Are Abasewa. He can designate the authority to anyone. However, to be the minister in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you need to get this consent of the Senate. That's why El Rufai is not a minister today. He was properly nominated, but did not get the consent of the Senate. The PIA defines the responsibility of the Minister of Petroleum, and it did not emphasize that the presidency will be the center of policy development, formulation, and implementation for the oil and gas industry. It is ineffective, it is inefficient, it's actually inequitable because the responsibility of the presidency is too much. Now, with respect to community policing, when we were drafting the host community bill, we wanted to put a provision to hold the community accountable for the fund they are going to receive from the lease owners if they cannot protect the assets of the lease owner. I think that one disappeared in the final bill, which became the act. Personally, I couldn't just understand why the community without the technology, the capability, the intelligentsia will be recruited to protect how many miles of kilometer. Let me give you a joke. I became a petroleum engineer in 1973. I went to petroleum engineering school in 1974 when I saw the pipeline in Okrika, and it was protected. It was on the surface. So what I'm saying is that if you are going to engage security outfit, it cannot be at a local level. In that case, you are depending on unproven technology to secure billion-dollar worth of assets. Yes, last resort.
All right.
And that's where policy development is very important. And I don't think the presidency is suitable to develop the petroleum policy in the evolving energy landscape.
All right, Prof. Let me come back to you, Mr. Adamo, because this is your area of expertise. I also want to have your take on this issue of, quote and unquote, this anomaly of engaging non-state actors in securing our national asset before I stream other questions as we start to wrap up.
All right, so I want us to kind of approach security a little bit broadly. There are roughly about 6 layers to every good security arrangement. And I can see the non-state actors fitting into some of the layers. But that is not in any way absorbing the state actors of their responsibility. I want to be very clear on that. So let me quickly kind of run through these 6 layers. Number 1, the ability to detect a threat. And this can come in the form of gathering intelligence. As an example, it could come in the form of installation of equipment, such as cameras and drones and whatever, or anything that can help you gather information that would detect a threat element can come under that. Now, the second one is the ability to deny that, in this instance, the oil thief, when he wants to steal. So there, I see clearly the role of the state actors, because they're the ones that are armed. If these guys are coming with sophisticated weapons and all of that, then I don't see how non-state actors that are not armed can prevent them, as long as our laws remain the way they are, that says you can only, as a private player, acquire some form of low-level guns, then that I don't see non-state actors playing that role. Then, of course, the other one is the capacity to respond, capacity to delay, and then, of course, the capacity to recover and all of that. So the only area that I see in a very legitimate way non-state actors becoming involved is in that first area, the ability to detect. Now, what I've seen in the last dispensation, as it were, and that has kind of carried on into this current administration, is where the entire responsibility for security has more or less been handed over to a non-state actor. Now, it is an abnormality.
Apparently, you have just landed at that particular point, and we need to wrap up this particular segment. I want to thank you so much. But before I let both of you go, gentlemen, just your last take, Prof, on this particular issue. I wanted to, maybe 30 seconds, Prof, about this issue of the NNPCL, talking about whether or not we have local refineries may not necessarily translate to the drop in the price of PMS. Just 30 seconds, Prof.
Well, it's going to depend on the cost. The pricing of product for profit maximization is marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. If your cost of additional production of a liter is not equal to the cost of additional input, then your price must be right to be able to balance the two of them. There's a particular price that will guarantee your earning power of investment. It's not about consumer sentiment. It's about your level of income to buy what you want to satisfy you. Price is the output of the fundamentals of demand and supply. It is the market that dictates the price of a commodity, not individual sentiment. And that's what I think the GCEO is trying to say. If the cost is lower today and the market is competitive, of course, the price is going to be down if there's any shift in demand and supply. But when you regulate it, then you're actually limiting the ability of the market to do efficient allocation of resources. And that's what we've done over the years, wasting 1 trillion naira every year for the last 10 years for something that is not productive. We need to rethink. We need to rethink. And that's why, in my opinion, the president must let go of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and give it to a policy hawk who will allow the multiplier of petroleum for sustainable economy. If he continues to hold it, anything he says is just saying it, because there are too many surrogates who will let it work.
Prof, that's a good place to let it. And thank you so much for your time. Professor Wumi Iledare is an energy expert. He joined us from the United States to give us insight on the issue of oil theft vis-a-vis the 2024 budget, as we expect the country to make more money. As you see the budget, we have a huge deficit. I was also joined on the program by the CEO of Beacon Consulting Limited and the security expert, Mr. Kabiru Adamu. Mr. Kabiru, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for the invitation. Best wishes.
And thank you, too, for giving us your insight on the program. When we come back after this break, we're going to shift gears to Osun State. The NJC, the National Judicial Council, a few days ago made a resolution and insisted that the chief judge of the state that was removed by the governor remains the substantive chief judge. We will explore all of that. I'm going to be joined by a member of cabinet of Osun State. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Sunday Politics right here on Channels Television. We're broadcasting live from Lagos. And of course, I did tell you that when we come back after this break, we'll be talking to a member of cabinet of Osun State. I'm being joined right now by the Commissioner for Information, Kolakwa Limi, who is here to talk to us about all of the things that are happening in his state as far as the judiciary is concerned. So let's get a bit of a background, a quick background. A few days ago, the National Judicial Council had actually made a decision and told the government of Osun State to revert back to status quo and retain the Honorable Justice Adeleke Ojo as the chief judge of the state. There was a lot that has happened between then and the final decision of the NJC, which is why the Commissioner for Information is here to explain their own side of the story. So, Honorable Commissioner, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me, Jeffrey.
So, a quick one. I want to assume that since the NJC rose and made that decision that the Honorable Justice Ojo should be reinstated or should go back to her duty post. I'm sure she has gone back to her duty post. Is that assumption correct?
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity, and I want to greet our viewers at home. First and foremost, the issue of the Chief Judge of Osun State should not be something that will be dragged forth and back like this. What actually happened was that having received petitions, the House of Assembly, in their own wisdom, they sat on it and passed a resolution. When you look at the letter from the House of Assembly, it was actually dated 16th November. The governor was not around. The same day the information got to the governor, it was sent to the deputy governor. The governor directed that the letter, another letter should be written along with that letter and be sent to the NJC. When you look at the letter of the governor sent to the NJC, it was also dated 16th and was received by the NJC on the 17th for their own advice. And so that is exactly what has happened. It was the House of Assembly that directed, passed a resolution that the CJ should step aside, that they wanted to investigate certain allegations and so on and so forth. The state government, as far as the executive arm of government is concerned, has not taken more than that steps. And what followed? What followed was that a few days ago, the letter of the governor received by the NJC was what the NJC made pronouncement on. That no, they have actually received, the NJC has actually received petitions now against the Honorable Chief Judge, my Lord Honorable Justice Adeleke Ojo. And that the petition is, they are yet to be investigated. Pending when the petition will be investigated, status quo should remain. A panel has actually been constituted, and I strongly believe from the information available to us that the copies of the petition have been sent to my Lord Justice Adeleke Ojo, the Chief Judge, for his response. I use is because the Chief Judge in the legal parlance is referred to as, usually referred to as a male. So now, as far as the state government is concerned, we don't have much hand in it. As when you look at it from the political angle, the Honorable Chief Judge, my Lord Justice Adeleke Ojo, and His Excellency Senator Ademola Jackson Adeleke, the governor of Osun State, they are from the same community, the same local government, Ede North, the same town, Ede. So they have relationships. Those that have been parroting all these things, they are the ones that have actually been accusing the governor of Edenization. That's their own terms. So it's now strange that when they see somebody from the same town, when the issues now came up, they now started, they became emergency activists. But what I can just tell you, Jeffrey, and to the Nigerians, is that as far as we are concerned, what we know is that as it is today, the NJC has responded to the governor, to the governor's letter. The NJC has equally acknowledged the receipt of petitions, which is yet to be investigated. Work is still ongoing there. And on the same issue, the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria, JUSO and Osun States, they are on strike statewide on the same issue relating to the petitions on the allegation against my Lord Chief Judge. And I learned they have written a petition to the NJC. Let's see how these things will go. But as far as the state government is concerned, we don't have any hand in it.
Let's be clear. Are you saying here, first, direct question, who is the Chief Judge of Osun State right now? Direct question.
Before today, direct question. My Lord,
Chief Judge of Osun State?
Honorable Chief Judge is Honorable Justice Adeleke Ojo. From the onset, we have been restating it, that the governor hasn't sent a letter to the NJC. We will have to wait. So my Lord is still in the office, but there is a strike ongoing. That is the only issue.
Mr. Alimi, hold on. But we've read that the governor approved the resolution of the House for her to step aside. Is that correct?
It's not true. I told you, I issued a statement.
What was
as a
your
commissioner,
statement? Yes.
No, as Commissioner for Information, the Chief CPS to the governor actually issued a statement in relation to the receipt of the letter from the House and the content, and that was what the people were actually misquoting. And immediately we saw that one, I issued a statement on behalf of the government that the governor has sent a letter to the NJC and that we await the response of the NJC. So nothing has changed.
So where did the story of the Honorable Justice heading to the National Industrial Court to get a restraining order for a suspension, where did it come from?
Thank you very much. I thought from when the Honorable Justice, the Chief Judge too, might have his ear on the ground that certain petition has been sent to the House of Assembly because the order actually preceded even the resolution. Do you get it?
I'm listening.
Maybe due to intelligence report, he rose to the court preemptively that the industrial court should give some interim order before 16th. So when you look at the date, go and look at the date of that order and look at the date of the resolution of the House. And even as at that time, when people were talking about that order, the state government was not served about that order. Was served about that order 5 days after. So the point I'm making is that the Honorable Chief Judge took that preemptive measure earlier than the time when the House sat on that on the resolution.
Why do you think? In fact, 2 questions. So let me I want to put you on record. You're saying here and now. At no time did Governor Adeleke sign anything removing or approving the removal of the Honorable Chief Judge.
At no time. That was why I told you that the letter written by the governor, dated 16, go and check the letter. It was the letter the NJC responded to. I can show you the copy of the letter because we didn't want to make
because this was all over the place.
Thank you. We didn't want to make the letter public because the NJC is a respected body. The letter sent to my Lord Honorable Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ariwola, dated 16 and received on 17. And you will see the resolution of the House of Assembly, dated the 16th. If the governor had actually wanted to take action or taken action, he wouldn't have sent letter to the NJC for their advice and recommendation.
I'm happy you're here. So you're also saying that that story that broke that said the governor made a U-turn on his earlier decision is also not true.
You know, let me tell you one thing. When you see our governor, if you are in Osun, you know, those people that have been looking for something to criticize the governor, they just got it. Because this is a governor that is performing. When you see a governor that is performing and you are just looking, you say, so when somebody is censorious, trying to look for faults, you understand it? They couldn't get any, so they grab it, they are twisting and twisting and twisting it. There was no time. If the governor had taken the action, my brother, the governor wouldn't have written a letter to the NJC the same day he received the resolution of the House for their own advice.
I'm not a lawyer, but walk me through this. I don't know whether you're a lawyer.
I'm a lawyer by training.
Okay, walk me through this. The NJC coming out after his 104th meeting to say, look, maintain status quo. My understanding of the Constitution, 292, which is how you can remove a chief judge with Section 1A and down to all of that subsection of that Constitution, is clear on how you can remove a chief judge. It has to be an alignment between the governor, the House of Assembly, and of course, the NJC. That is how you can remove the chief judge. Yes. So when I'm confused as to why the NJC will use a term like maintain status quo. It's like reverse to what was. What was altered?
No. You know, do you know the reason why? Do you know the reason why the NJC used the word status quo?
Exactly.
When you read the resolution, what the governor did was that the governor attached the resolution of the House to his own letter and said both the resolution of the House and the governor's letter and said to the NJC. When you look at the resolution, it was the resolution of the House to the governor that the chief judge should step aside so that the investigation against him could go freely. That was it. And that was what the governor sent to the NJC. It was in response to that one, because maintain the status quo. But as at that time, the NJC too has received petitions which they are going to investigate. So when you look at it, the NJC is now telling the whole world, you wait, maintain status quo. Before that, the status quo is already there. That's what I can tell the whole world.
Okay, but my producer is telling me I have just 1 minute. So in your, just beginning to wrap up now, the chief judge and the governor, you're saying they're in good terms. I
told you they are from the same town.
That doesn't necessarily mean they should be in good terms.
The chief judge my Lord Judge Adeleke actually sworn in His Excellency Governor Adeleke, and since that time, nothing frozen has occurred. So as far as we are concerned, there is no issue, and there shouldn't be any, because I told you they are from the same town. That should inform you that if two principal actors like that are from the same town, there are so many mechanisms, even from home, that could have...
Okay, let's just shift attention. I told you I'm wrapping up now. 30 seconds. So it's 1 year after Governor Adeleke took over. So what are the highlights, quick? Because the opposition has said that he's tailing off the achievement of his predecessor. There's nothing substantial that has been done under his administration. How do you respond?
Thank you very much. If you are in
you have 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay. Just don't take part of it. Yeah. Governor Adeleke met a backlog of salaries, which we usually refer to in Osun as half salaries. He has paid 4 months. Quarter by quarter. That's one, which the last government did not pay any out. The backlog of a pensions and arrears. If you monitor the activities in Osun today, you will see that about 1.5 months ago, the pensioners in Osun, both contributory and not pensions scheme, they gave award to our governor because he has increased the monthly release for the pensions. So in terms of active, the governor is doing fantastic. In terms of infrastructure, roads.
Okay.
We have so many roads that have been constructed. We have health centers that have been rehabilitated. We have schools that have been rehabilitated. And let me tell you, we have 100 billion naira infra projects.
Unfortunately, we don't have.
We are in the next 1 year. We are constructing 5 flyovers.
Maybe we'll invite you back to come and tell us exactly what the governor has done. I want to thank you so much, Commissioner of Information, Osun State, Mr. Kolaku Ali.
Information and Public Enlightenment.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's it on the program for tonight. I'll meet you again tomorrow at 7 p.m. right here on Channel Television on Politics Today. But that's it up. Thank you for watching. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. God bless Nigeria.